welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I hope you're all doing very, very well. Miriam's well, look, here she is. Today's video is a video that I did last year, and I actually filmed it towards the end of last year, not super at the end, but in the second half of the year. And I thought I'd bring it forward a bit this year, and it's books on my shelves, which I think could be 5-star books. I always really enjoy watching people's videos of this, like predicting 5-star books and reviewing books that they thought were going to be 5 stars. And last year I picked 5 books in the latter half of the year for me to read, one a month. So what I've done here is I've picked 7 books. We're in, I mean, when I'm filming it, this will be going up in May. I'm filming this in April. And I've got 7 books here, all of which I think is going to be 5 stars. I've very much enjoyed sort of browsing my newly arranged shelves. Again, I'm just a little bit off centre there, aren't I? Because you may well have seen me, well, you may well have seen the injury I got. Actually, it didn't come up in a bump, but I rearranged my shelves. I'll link the video down below. All the books attacked me. They all fell on my head. It was so painful. And since I've rearranged them, I've had a little browse and I've picked 7 off of the shelves that I think are going to be 5-star books. And I'm going to pick one for May. So this will be going up in May. You've probably already seen on my May TBR the book that I've picked. June, July, August, September, October, November, and then December I've left because I normally read Christmas books in December. She said Christmas, it's April. So yeah, I guess let's get going on what books I've picked here, the 7 books. I'll show you the non-spined version for spoilers, for excitement, hype I think. And yeah, then maybe we'll decide at the end which of these I'm going to put on my TBR for this month. So the first one is Notes on an Execution by Dania Kukafka. I heard this being discussed on the What Page You On podcast, and they were both so hyped and so excited for it. It got me hyped and excited for it. What made me even more hyped and excited is that I believe this to be a brand new edition for £1 at the charity shop at the charity desk at work. This is about Ansel Packer, and he is scheduled to die in 12 hours. And he knows what he's done, and now he awaits the same fate he forced on all those girls years ago. Ansel doesn't want to die, he wants to be celebrated, understood. But this is not his story, and this is about the 3 women who uncover the history of a tragedy and the long shadow it casts. Lavender, who's Ansel's mother, is a 17-year-old girl pushed to desperation. Hazel, twin sister to his wife, is forced to watch helplessly as the relationship threatens to devour them all. And Safi, the detective hot on his trail, is devoted to bring bad men to justice but struggling to see her own life clearly. And this is the story of the women left behind. It sounds fantastic. Apparently it's very sort of like thrillery written, and yeah, I can't bloody wait to read it. So that's my first one. The next one is a proof copy of a book that's out, it just says spring 2022, we're in that time now. I wonder if this is out now, and this is Complicit by Winnie M. Lee. And this is a book set in the film industry, and it says here, there are 2 important lessons you need to know about the film industry. 1, those with money have all the power. 2, those with the power get whatever they want. Ignore these rules and the whole system will crumble. Stick to the rules and you'll succeed. Ask yourself, what would you have done? Now, so that to me sounds exciting. It sounds like it's going to be sort of like, as I've said about Notes on an Execution, sort of thriller-esque. David and I were planning on reading aloud a book to each other every month. We've only done 2 so far. The March book we didn't get onto, and like I've said, it's April now, and we were supposed to be reading the Stanley Tucci book, Taste, which we haven't got round to, but maybe we'll take that over to May. But this book I think would be a really good one for me and David to read aloud to one another, and I feel like we would get enjoyment out of it. It's set in the film industry, which is something that David would very much enjoy, and it's all about sort of like women as well, which is something I will enjoy. The chapters aren't too long or too short, so that makes it perfect reading as like a sort of read aloud buddy read. So I think the month that I end up reading this is going to be the month that David and I read this aloud to each other, and hopefully we'll both enjoy it very much. So there we go, that's the next one. Then I've got How Beautiful We Were by Mbolo Mbew. This was one that I was surprised not to see on the Women's Prize. I didn't put it on my predictions, but I wondered if it might appear on the Women's Prize long list. It didn't. And this is set in a fictional African village called Kosowa, and this is a story of people, the people of Kosowa living there in sort of amidst environmental degradation, which has been wrought by an American oil company. I've read a few sort of similar books to this, none set in Africa. It says pipeline spills have rendered farmlands infertile, children are dying from drinking toxic water, promises of clean-up and financial reparations are made and broken. Left with few choices, the people of Kosovo decide to fight back, but it will come at a steep price, one which generation after generation will have to pay. So this sounds to me, I mean, it sounds very sad, but like I like the sort of like generational thing of it. Like I said, I've read books like this before, but none of which have been set in an African village. And yeah, it's about, it says here, it's a masterful exploration of what happens when the reckless drive for profit, coupled with a ghost of colonialism, comes up against one community's determination to hold on to its ancestral land and a young woman's willingness to sacrifice everything for the sake of her people's freedom. Sounds really good, doesn't it? So yeah, that's the third one. The next one is, now this is unusual. So this is a short story collection, all from the author Danielle Evans. This is the Office of Historical Corrections, which actually, if I believe the Office of Historical Corrections is a novella, and then there's short stories in here as well. Now, it's unusual for me to put a short story collection or an essay collection in a 5-star predictions, because I find them so variable, particularly in essay anthologies or short story anthologies, which this isn't. As I said, it's from one author, because there's so much sort of like different stuff in there. You never know if you're going to love it all. So this is a bit of a tricky one. This is like a, am I going to love this? But the reason I think I'm going to love this is that this appeared on Emma from Drinking by My Shelves, best books of last year. I'm sure, or maybe on her Instagram story she was talking about it. But whenever I see this, I think, oh, Emma really loved that. And I think our reading tastes overlap quite a lot. So yeah, hopefully I will love this as well. So it says here, sharp and funny, brilliant and prescient, the stories and novella that make, like I said, make up the Office of Historical Corrections offer X-ray insights into complex human relationships, allowing them to speak to larger issues of race, culture, authority and history. We meet black and multiracial characters who are experiencing the universal confusions of lust and love, are getting walloped by grief, all while exploring how history haunts us personally and collectively. Ultimately, these stories provoke us to think about the truths of American history, about who gets to tell them and the cost of setting the record straight. It's got a few little insights into what happens in the stories here, and I will read them because they sound great. In Boys Go to Jupiter, a white college student tries to reinvent herself after a photo of her in a Confederate flag bikini goes viral. In Richard of York Gave Battle in Vain, a photojournalist is forced to confront her own losses while attending an old friend's unexpectedly dramatic wedding. And in the eye-opening title novella, a black scholar from Washington, D.C. is drawn into a complex historical mystery that spans generations and puts her job, her love life, and her oldest friendships at risk. Bloody hell, I mean, imagine getting that all into a novella. That sounds exciting, doesn't it? So yeah, there we go, high hopes. And then I've got Persuasion by Jane Austen. Jane Austen, you know Jane Austen. I've been recently thinking about how much I enjoyed Pride and Prejudice. My friend and I were talking about the BBC adaptation. I went to watch Operation Mincemeat, which had both Colin Firth and Matthew McFadden in it, so double Darcy. And I've been thinking about how much I enjoyed Pride and Prejudice, and there are three maybe, because I think Lady Susan is one that I haven't read it. Yeah, Lady Susan, is that a Jane Austen book? I'm sure. So I haven't read Persuasion, I haven't read Emma, and then I haven't read, and there's another one called like Friendship something. There's a few that I haven't read by Jane Austen, this being one of them. And it's a short little number. They're making a film of it this year, or a series of it this year, maybe a film and a series. I think there's double like Persuasion gear coming on. And this year for June, I'm going to be doing June Austen. So in June, so this one will be read in June, so I can already allocate this one to June. I'll be reading the two Jane Austen books that I own, so Persuasion and Emma, that I haven't read. And then I'm going to be reading sort of like adaptations of all Jane Austen's books. A few years ago I did Pride and Prejudice, so I've still got a few adaptations from Pride and Prejudice to read, and then I've been getting a few others out from the library and stuff like that. So this is going to be read in June, and I've got high hopes for it. High hopes. And I love these feathers. I love these cloth bound classics, the penguin ones, they're so gorgeous. Then I've got The Vanishing Act of Esme, Lennox by Maggie O'Farrell. Maggie O'Farrell's writing I've always very much enjoyed. Her memoir, I Am, is one of the best memoirs I've ever read. And more recently I read, I can't remember what that one was called. Another one of Maggie O'Farrell's books, which I can't find, but a book that I very much enjoyed by her. And this one has got a quote on the back which really drew me in, by Ali Smith, which says, "Actually unputdownable, reminiscent of classic Daphne du Maurier." You'll know I'm going to love that. So it says it's set in Edinburgh in the 1930s. The Lennox family is having trouble with its youngest daughter. Esme is outspoken, unconventional, and repeatedly embarrasses them in polite society. Something will have to be done. Years later, a young woman named Iris Lockhart receives a letter informing her that she has a great aunt in a psychiatric unit who is about to be released. Iris has never heard of Esme Lennox, and the one person who should know more, her grandmother Kitty, seems unable to answer Iris's questions. What could Esme have done to warrant a lifetime in an institution? And how is it possible for a person to be so completely erased from a family's history? Doesn't that sound great? And like Ali says, reminiscent of classic du Maurier. Also, the font in this book is really unusual and I like it very much. I like all of these new covers that they've published them in as well. Tinder Press have done that. And then lastly, the last book, which I think will have which will be a 5-star, is the last book from this author that I haven't read yet, and it's Affinity by Sarah Waters. I'm so looking forward to reading this, but also so not looking forward to reading it because then I've read all of Sarah Waters' work. However, I've heard there's whispers of a new Sarah Waters book next year. So I'd like to have read, I think what I would like to have done is to read all of Sarah Waters' books before her new book comes out. So I've got something really much to look forward to. And also I can revisit the other ones that I've read and loved. So I know I will do that. So this is Affinity. It says, from the dark heart of a Victorian prison, disgraced spiritualist Selena Dawes weaves an enigmatic spell. Is she a fraud or a prodigy? By the time it all begins to matter, you'll find yourself desperately wanting to believe in magic. Something I love about Sarah Waters is that her research is literally second to none. All of the historical fiction books I've read by her, I just read it as like it's written in that time. I've loved all of her books. The Paying Guest is an amazing book. My favourite book from last year was Fingersmith, which I absolutely loved. And yeah, I feel like this has got to be a 5-star. I think all of her books I've given 5-star. Tip in the Velvet I gave 5 stars. Oh, maybe I didn't give the Little Stranger 5 stars. I think that might have been a bit spoopy for me, but yeah, surely. So what shall I put on my TBR for next month? You would have already seen me deciding, you would have already seen my TBR by this point. Obviously it's not going to be Persuasion because that's going ahead in June. I feel like maybe Sarah Waters is a bit more sort of wintry historical fiction and stuff like that. I get historical fiction vibes and read them in winter. Might even save that for November as like a little treat to myself in November for my birthday. Then what have we got? The Vanishing Act of Esme Lennox. This is also sort of like historical fiction, isn't it? Because it's 1930s. Do I want to leave that for a little bit later? Maybe I do. The Office of Historical Corrections. Maybe I'll read that. I mean, these 4, I feel excited about all of these. I've semi-picked my TBR for next month. Have I got any short story collections on there? I think I have. So maybe I'll save that for a month where I don't have any short story collections to read. This one I want to read with David, and I'm hoping to read the Stanley Tucci one next month in May, and then in June hopefully we'll get to read a Jane Austen book retelling. So maybe that'll be for later on in the year. So Notes on an Execution or How Beautiful We Were. Maybe this one. What story? I think I'm going to go for Notes on an Execution. So yeah, I'm going to stick that on my TBR for this for May. You would have already seen me talk about that in my May TBR. And yeah, let's hope that these books are all 5-star books. And I'll see you all again soon for another BookTube video.